Hey, what's up everyone? This is K Collections, and with the recent announcement of the next Singularity, we will be receiving the first banner for this chapter, which will feature the new 5-star Berserker, Nightingale. And I just want to let you all know that since there's so much to cover in this particular banner, there will be 3 parts or 3 videos summarizing this whole entire banner. The first one will be a breakdown of Nightingale and the new craft essence. Part 2 will be on the 2 new 4-star servants, and the final part will be on the 3-star servants. So let's get started. Just know that Nightingale isn't a limited or locked servant, so you can get her anytime. Starting with her attack deck, she has 1 quick, 2 arts, and 2 buster with the Arts Noble Phantasm, so you can Arts Brave Chain as an option. Her hit counts, quick does 6 hits, which is good. Sadly, since she only has 1, it can be somewhat underutilized, but it can be great for helping her generate MP due to the high hit counts. Ideally, you want to use an Arts card first to give the first card bonus. Arts does 2 hits, which can be a bit troublesome for MP generation due to the low hit counts. Buster does 1 hit, Extra does 5 hits, and her Noble Phantasm does 1 hit. Now, let's take a look at her active skills. I'll say this right now, they're all great. Her skills and NP are the reasons why she's such a solid servant, though she does have some weaknesses, which I will talk about later. But her first skill, Nurse of Steel, heals an ally's HP anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 depending on the skill level. This is actually one of the highest healing abilities in the game, so that's very awesome right there. The cooldown isn't too bad either, having a 5-turn cooldown if you max the skill out. Her second skill is actually really good, but somewhat situational. This skill increases both her damage and defense against humanoid enemies for 3 turns. Of course, higher the skill means higher the buff. And here's just a chart of all the regular humanoid enemies. This also includes most, if not all, enemy servants. I do believe that all servants are humanoid. There may be an exception or two, but this means Nightingale is most effective against servants. Again, cooldown isn't bad either. Of course, max leveling this skill would definitely help. For her final skill, this increases the allies' buster effectiveness for 3 whole turns, anywhere from 30% to 50% depending on the skill level. This can also apply to herself, but it's most ideal to use this skill on your main attacker who can bust her Brave Chain. A very straightforward skill, but can be very, very deadly. Moving on, she only has 1 passive skill, which is Madness Enhancement EX. This increases buster effectiveness by a whopping 12%. That's really good. Though she cannot bust her Brave Chain, which is, a big bummer there. She does have 2 buster cards, so it can still be quite decent. Now let's talk about her beautiful, beautiful Noble Phantasm. This NP does a few things. First, it decreases all enemies' NP strength for 1 turn while removing all debuffs on your team, as well as healing their HP significantly. So her Noble Phantasm is good, but post-interlude is when this Noble Phantasm becomes even better. After her power-up, the NP gains another effect, which is a debuff that decreases all enemies' attack for 1 turn. Her Noble Phantasm post-interlude is excellent, and here are some reasons why. So first off, it decreases both NP strength and attack significantly. Higher the level / overcharge means less damage taken. Not only that, the HP recovery is quite high as well, meaning most of your servants will be in good to decent health. Lastly, this removes all debuffs, so any of those annoying defense down or something will be gone. This means you'll most likely survive a servant's NP attack. Damage will be taken, but you'll survive. And this Noble Phantasm isn't just limited to negating or defending against enemy NP attacks. You can also use this skill or use this Noble Phantasm whenever the situation calls. I'll talk more about Nightingale on my final thoughts. For now though, let's move on to the new craft essence, starting with the new 5-star CE, Ideal of the Holy King. This CE is actually quite interesting. Very simple. This increases the HP of all allies, every single one by 1,000. If you max limit break it, the HP increases to 1,200, and this is stackable if you have multiple copies. Here's just a cool example of the insane increase in health, right? And I do apologize in advance, for the numbers being blurry, but basically if you have 6 copies of this CE equipped, that's 6,000 increase on all your servants. That's of course if none of it is max limit broken. If it is, hey, more HP, that's insane, right? Now, if you do have, let's say, 1 copy or 2 of this craft essence, ideally equip it with a support servant who can still function effectively without any CEs. So examples would be Joan of Arc and Waver. They could do very well with this craft essence. So this CE isn't game-breaking-ish. I mean, it's a potential 6k boost in HP. That's just insane, in my opinion, right? Mind officially blown. So the thing is, this craft essence, I wouldn't really recommend whaling for it, because depending on the servants you have, you could potentially trade off offensive capabilities for more HP, which isn't bad, but there's always better choices in terms of craft essence. Nonetheless, it is a solid CE, and one of the better ones, especially if you have multiple copies. I'd say getting some of these down the road would be good, and without a doubt can be quite helpful, not to mention the stat increase isn't bad either. Moving on to the new 4-star craft essence, this increases debuff success rate by 15%, max limit broken, it becomes 20%. You want to equip this with a servant that has a good debuffing that relies on chance. There are many servants in this category, but one example could be Tesla, right? This CE increases the chance to stun all enemies when using his Noble Phantasm. The new 3-star craft essence basically increases MP strength when equipped to Lancers by 15%. 25% if you max limit break it. Clearly, you want to equip this with your sabers. Or an archer, that works too. In all seriousness, this isn't a bad CE whatsoever, especially if you are a beginner player. Use this with your Lancers, it can definitely benefit you for the time being until you get a more variety of CEs to choose from. Now, my final thoughts. Should you roll for Nightingale? Yes, I definitely would recommend her. Let's talk about some of her strengths. She's one of the best healers in the game, but that's not her only role. Nightingale is a multi-purpose servant, best suited when you're facing servants. Her active skills are all great, meant for different situations. Her second skill, which buffs herself against humanoid enemies, is excellent. If you want her to be more offensive, that's great. Being a berserker also helps a lot in terms of the damage department, and the increase in defense from the skill helps her live longer as well, despite her class. Her third skill, being targetable, will greatly help your main buster attacker with their damage output. Obviously, you can use the buster buff on herself. Having 2 buster cards and a passive that increases buster effectiveness, this can be an option if the situation requires her to kill an enemy. NP is an excellent support, debuffing enemies' attack for a turn while recovering HP and removing debuffs. Beautiful. Simply beautiful. Now, let's talk about some of her weaknesses. Of course, being a berserker means she dies faster if you aren't careful. Nightingale also requires heavily on team composition in order to be most effective. On the subject of her class being a weakness, this also means you'll most likely use her active healing skill on herself since she does take in more damage as a berserker. This can somewhat limit her healing support outside her Noble Phantasm. Not a big issue, again, with the good support it shouldn't be a problem, but just know it can affect your priorities on healing. Lastly, her NP gain can be an issue if the right attack cards doesn't show up. Also, she does lack any guts or evasion skill, so once she's near death, you may have to say goodbye. So, for team composition, even though Nightingale is a support servant with some offensive capabilities, do not have her as the only support. Best team is having her, a strong support to help her with her weaknesses, and a buster attacker. There are many options. I would highly recommend Waver. He's excellent for her. His skills help with NP gain while boosting defense, further helping her with her class disadvantage, can buff her attacks even more, especially when you're facing humanoid enemies. Arts Chain can definitely help in NP generation as well. Overall, Waver is a great support. Mash is another servant I highly recommend. Her target focus can help prevent enemies from attacking Nightingale, especially if she's near death. You can Arts Chain with her. Mash can also use her NP or skills to increase defense in combination to Nightingale's NP, which debuffs attack, meaning your enemy's attack will hit like wet noodles. Since Mash can use invincibility on her, you wouldn't have to worry if Nightingale will survive for the turn, which definitely makes up for the lack of guts or evasion skill. Plus, it gives a small little bit of NP gain, which can always help. So like I said, it's best to have one support with Nightingale and one main buster attacker. That would be the best team composition. Of course, you can always adjust your team accordingly. I actually even encourage you playing around with team builds. For a few CE recommendations, help her with her NP gain because you want her NP gauge to be filled as fast as possible. So Prisma Cosmos, Petite Devil, and Divine Banquet can help. There are also many other options. 2030 can help as well. because of her low star absorption due to her class. The stars will go to your main attacker, thus, potentially you could deal more damage. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Like I said, I'll be breaking down the other servants. Also, follow me on Twitter. If you like collecting figures, follow me on Instagram. So, will you be subbing for Nightingale? If you are, I wish you success. For me, I know, sadly I have to skip this banner. I just have to save all my Saint Quartz. Anyways, best of luck and have a wonderful day. Till next time, everyone.